Okay, so next up, we finished putting the frames together. However, I did not do the engine assembly, and I'm going to hold off on that, mainly because, and save that till later, mainly because as we're building this and I'm laying on the table, I don't want my needle valves sticking out, possibly bend them. I recommend you guys probably save that till later as well, while you're working on the heli. Mainly because, you know, once the fan shrouds everything, it's kind of hard to remove the carburetor on its own, alright? So we're going to skip that, and we got the tank in, we got the frame halves together. Now I'm also, for video purposes, going to skip doing the landing gear and base plate for now. Of course, we want the base plate off when we go to put the motor in, so that'll be after we do the motor later. But on this step is the bell cranks for the swash plate and control rods to the servos. So go ahead and get out bag 8 and pull out your bell cranks here, get your balls ready. We'll go ahead and put that stuff on. I'll kind of put the balls on and review it with you, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we got our bell cranks out. Now, quick tip before you start putting them on, and again, I'll come back and show, but you'll notice that the two triple arms, one has a larger shoulder. This one will go on one side of the heli standalone, and the one with the shorter shoulder will go with the, I believe that's going to be the elevator arm, but we need to make sure we get the balls on correctly. Okay, so for the triple arms, this arm here, you're going to put the balls on the outside, on the other side of the shoulder, and on the long arm you're going to put the ball on the inside. So you'll do that for this triple arm, and you'll do that for this triple arm. Now on this arm here, you'll notice there's a taper right here on one side. And one second here, it's showing best I can tell. Yeah, never mind, it's down in the lower corner. I was looking at the picture, but it's down here in the lower corner. So you want to put the balls on opposite the side of the taper, so the balls go on this side, okay, on the flat side, not on the tapered side. Okay, so get all the balls on, we'll come back and review. By the way, don't forget your Loctite on these. Okay, so there we have it. The one with the long shoulder, balls on the outside, the long arm, ball on the inside. The one with the short shoulder, balls on the outside of the shoulder, ball on the inside, elevator, bell crank with the taper with the ball on the other side. Okay, so now, if you look at the heli with the tail pointing at you, we'll go ahead and look at this shaft that we had mounted. Now, if you remember, I said center that shaft in this elevator control arm here with the two set screws as best you can. And you're going to find out why in a minute. This bell crank goes on here, and actually we got some washers to put on. And when we're done, what we don't want is any in and out play, or as little as possible. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put it on. Now, in the manual, if you remember way back in this step, another step, this little bag came with all these little washers. It came with that rod and the elevator bell crank that we put in the helicopter. Okay, so in my manual it says brass. There's two tiny washers. Those go with the screws, so you'll see those two tiny ones. And then there's three larger washers. The three larger washers in my manual say brass, but it's not brass, at least on my kit. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to put one on the left side of the heli, and we're going to drop the bell crank with the large shoulder on it. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take the little screw and a little washer. Don't forget your Loctite, and we're going to tighten it up on there. Alright, actually I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Put the little washer on, and I may cut out some of this video, but probably do it plenty fast. I don't like to spend time on video showing you how to put a screw in. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and put that screw in. Try not to get any in those bearings. Clean off that Loctite if needed. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and tighten this up. I'm going to hold the elevator, and then you don't need to really wail on this, but just make sure it's tight. Okay, now check that there's no in and out play on this bell crank, but that it's free and not notchy, and mine is actually perfect right there. Now, if yours is too tight when you tighten that screw up and it's pushing that washer and everything into that bearing, what you're going to need to do is go back in here on this elevator bell crank with the two set screws. Let's see if I can see it in there. And you're going to need to loosen those two set screws. Don't take them out, just loosen them, because remember, they sit on flat spots. If you lose the flat spots, you're going to be in trouble. So just loosen them, and that'll allow you to move that shaft slightly in and out, so that this is free, but you have no end play. If you've got a lot of end play right now, then you may want to loosen them and slide it in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do this side next, because there's This bell crank has 2 set screws, and there's 2 flat spots on this shaft. If you look, there's one on each side. So we want to make sure we get those. Actually, I only see 1 flat spot. 1 second here. Did I put this in backwards? Let me check something real quick here. I don't think I did, but let me just double check before this Loctite dries. Make sure there's not 2 on this side. And there's not. As a matter of fact, if you put this in correctly, yeah. So there's only 1 flat spot on this side too. So pardon me there. I'll probably cut this out. Oop, did I lose my washer? Yes, I did. Alright, bear with me here. Bear with, guys. I know you hear that from me a lot. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pre-start the set screws on this bell crank, but don't get them to where they block the inside of the hole. So go ahead, pre-start those, get some Loctite on it. We'll come back and check that side. Okay, set screws started. Now this bell crank goes on with the balls facing outward, but we want to put one of our big washers on, or our larger washers in that pack. Alright, and then you'll see the flat spot's fairly wide, so it gives you some bit of adjustment with the set screw. We're going to go ahead and put that on and line up 1 set screw with the flat spot. And again, the way I like to do this is snug the set screw down, back it off just a little bit, hold the elevator, and make sure I'm on the set screw. You can see I can't turn the bell crank, but it's waddling on the set screw. Now what I want to do is kind of push that in so that there's no possible way that the bell crank, you want it, that washer tied up against the bearing. Now let's double check our last adjustment here. So we put on another bell crank, and what we want to do is, and another washer. Let me go ahead and get this screw on real quick. What we want to do is same kind of thing. When we tighten this side up, we want to make sure that our bearing on that bell crank is not notchy. If it is, it means our shaft, once again, was not centered in the frame when we put that elevator shaft on. Alright, let's check. Do we have any in and out play? I have none. Bell crank's nice and free, not notchy. So again, if that shaft wasn't centered when you tighten those 2 set screws on this elevator arm, that's your problem. So you may need to just loosen them, let all that get centered up, then go ahead and tighten them down again. There's flat spots there. So check all this, make sure it's all nice and free. You've Loctited it, so on and so forth. Alright? So that kind of completes the bell crank assembly, and we will continue on.